Hey guys, let's talk about the Packers preseason matchup against the Eagles last night. Packers winning, and which is always a good thing. Not that the score in the preseason matters, but this is the Out of Breath Armstrong Packer Minute, the show where I walk around the neighborhood talking about the Packers, and you watch to see if I get beeped by a Roadrunner. And yes, today we have Packer football to talk about, an actual live sporting event. Very exciting game last night in a lot of ways, although early on this game looked like it could be disappointing as well. Packers offense stuttered coming out of the gate, and Brett Hundley not looking too good right off the bat. He completed the quick short out to Randall Cobb, and then after that our running game never seemed to develop. The pressure was always on Eagles by the end of the night, ending up with 5 sacks. This is not what Packer Nation was looking for. However, Hundley was able to hit his stride and hit Jeff Janis in stride with a nice touchdown pass, and then at the half, passed the torch on, so to speak, to Joe Callahan, who, in my estimation, had a phenomenal outing. He looked as advertised. You know, the difference to me between Hundley and Callahan is Hundley looked like he hit the ground running, and Callahan looked like he hit the ground running. And the fact of the matter is, it was Callahan that is coming off back-to-back years, and Hundley the one that was a little bit rusty and looked a little bit rusty after having missed an entire preseason last year. Not really getting on the field much at all. However, I will say this, when Hundley settled in, he seemed to have a pretty good command of the huddle, though some of his passes were not the best, and the worst one being right before the half after an interception, to, instead of getting points, to throw another pick on top right before the half ends. This is not the way that he wanted to end the half, and you could tell it bothered Hundley, and it should, because that chance for points, and remember, the Packers like to double dip, so they like to get those points right before the half, and I don't actually recall if we got the ball back after the half, but in that scenario, it was the perfect opportunity for Brett Hundley to show he had the ability to double dip by getting those points right before the half. Even a field goal would have been a positive sign. An interception, the last thing you want. Even if the drive stalled out and we ran the ball or something, would have been forgivable, but that pass was it was a poor decision and a poorly thrown ball. So, but with that said, Brett Hundley still has to work his way back into full duty as a quarterback because he hasn't been there for a long time. Now, Callahan, I thought, looked really good. His escapability is frankly off the charts and very Rodgers-esque, even though Hundley is mobile too and looks a little bit Rodgers-esque himself from time to time, but it's Callahan that is able to roll out and escape. The only difference is Callahan was unable to get the ball in the end zone. Now, he didn't throw any interceptions, and he had a couple nice little runs, and he really had great command of the huddle as well. So I think Callahan gets an A for the night, where Hundley actually Callahan, I think, gets an A. I would say Hundley gets maybe a B, maybe a B+, maybe a C+. I don't know. It depends on what your rating scale is. I think at this point, it is the preseason. I did expect more out of Hundley. But it's good work either way. You know, you've got tape now to look at. Corrections can be made on that tape. And this is valuable work for good or ill. Now, finally, Taysom Hill is a guy that I was really excited about. I know some of you were as well. We got to see him for the first time. And honestly, the pass to Michael Clark, I thought, was a thing of beauty. You know, every time I talk about Taysom Hill, I feel like I'm qualifying my interest in him with, you know, his throwing motion or his mechanics or this or that and the other thing. I tell you what, he threw a beautiful ball, put a beautiful ball on Michael Clark, and Michael Clark did a good job going up to get him. That's what Michael Clark does. Ex-basketball player converted to the NFL, and we saw him get out there and do exactly what the Packers hoped he could do. A big, tall, 6'6" receiver, go up and get that ball. A little bit of an aerial attack. And Taysom Hill doing it with his arm, which, you know, he has a live arm, but his mechanics have been called into question at times. But frankly, if he puts the ball on the money like that, I'm not going to have much problem with that, and neither will his coaching staff. Also, being able to do it with his legs is something Hill brings. You know, a big kid, what is he, 6'3", weighs 220, and he's got 4.4 speed. That's not something that you often get in a quarterback. And that kind of athleticism is very intriguing moving forward. And Taysom Hill, I think, bought himself some reps in the game last night as well. It was good to see. Now, a couple of the bad of the game. we know we got to talk about putting the ball on the ground. I mean, ball security, for crying out loud, and it drives me nuts. And every time I have to talk about it, it just drives me nuts that I have to talk about it, because this team should know better than that. And it started with Ty Montgomery, and it just never ended. Now, to balance that conversation out, the Eagles squared it up by the time all was said and done, and they had their own share of problems that way, which lent to some exciting plays by the Packers. I mean, we're knocking balls loose. We got Christian Ringo, his big butt rumbling out there, picking up a fumble that was jarred loose by Blake Martinez, that was caused by Kevin King making a nice stick in the open field. So there were some good things that came out about that, although we've got to make sure and shore up our ball security, which is incredibly important moving forward. I get the lawn mowing operations going. That's awesome. I need to do mine. Actually, it's really, really bad. But anyway, we had a few exciting things. We had, the Joe Thomas interception. I mean, for crying out loud, we had an interception in this game that was like perfect safety work. There were some good things that happened on defense. One of the things that I like to call attention to is the Kevin King coverage sack, I call it. I mean, the perimeter was covered well. Quarterback pumping toward Kevin King. Unable to complete the pass, not safe. Ends up getting sacked. This is something I've called attention to for a long time, and I was really excited to see it. And to be quite honest, I think part of that is because I did not expect it just yet. I did say that I thought there's a chance the coverage sack would return to Green Bay, which had been absent in 2016. But I got to be honest, I was a little surprised. It came right off the bat like that. And a little double move on King. King didn't bite. Pump fake, could not throw the ball, just couldn't release the ball, too dangerous. And that amounts to a sack by Clay Matthews. And this is the kind of thing that this team needs moving forward. Somebody driving really slow. Thought they were going to stop and pick me up going the wrong way or something. But that to me was probably the most exciting thing of the night. I mean, you can talk about the Trevor Davis punt return, which was insane. I love to see that, and I know you guys loved it too. But that was good to see. One thing I want to talk about, because I think we covered most of the high points and low points this morning, but I did see Dean Lowry as very active. Our defensive line is looking active. They're looking angry. They did not get home that much, but they were disruptive, and the attitude is there. And we saw with the entirety of the defense, that attitude really came home. It took a little bit, I think, for it to translate onto the field against the Eagles, and we saw that early on, and the tackling wasn't good. The open field tackling wasn't good, generally speaking. But later on, we saw these guys come on, and I did, by the end, where I was really nervous and a little bit, especially on the 3rd and 12 or whatever that went for a touchdown, I was getting really angry at the defense and their poor tackling. However, by the end of the night, I think the way things metered out, I was pretty positive once again, which is how I had been for a long time about this Green Bay Packer defense. So here we go, guys. We got one under our belts. I got somebody coming over the shoulder here. We got one under our belts, 3 more to go. We got to wait till next Saturday. Packers off for a while, so there won't be any news for a little bit. But they need to get some rest. They've been at it for a long time. And with family night and then the first preseason game, hopefully they can rest and recuperate. We can get some guys back. Word on the street right now, I think, is that Dupree has been released from the hospital. That's great news. I mean, that guy took a shot. Young receiver, a lot of talent, a lot of potential there. We want to see him get home and be safe and be healthy, so that's awesome. Let him have a chance to rest. Maybe he won't miss much work, which I think would be important for him moving forward. And, of course, Demarius Randall with the concussion. Maybe we can see what happens with him. End up with, same thing with Don Barkley. We got decimated. I mean, having this many injuries, I almost want to use the term decimated already. But too many injuries for a preseason game, that's one of the negatives. But I do think with this rest, a few days of rest, Packers will come back strong. And then next Saturday, we got another one going on, guys. All right, well, that's going to do it for me for today. I hope you have a great weekend. I will catch up again with you Monday, if not before. You know me, once in a while I just run out because I can't help myself. So I will catch up with you again then. And until then, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy a Packer win. Go Pack.